So, welcome to our video supplement on the topic of the logic of conclusions. So before we go to the main topic, I'd just like to share with you a paper that was presented by Raymond Daisy. This was back in 1978, wherein he developed this so-called theory of conclusions. And in this paper, Daisy basically said three things about conclusions. So the first thing is that conclusions are statements which are usually accepted on the basis of unusually strong evidence. And number two, conclusions are to remain accepted unless and until unusually strong evidence to the contrary arises. And finally, conclusions are subject to future rejection when and if the evidence against them becomes strong enough. So having said that, connecting this with the logic of conclusions, how do we apply this? So as a good researcher, we need to follow a certain flow of logic in your own study before you have to reach a conclusion. Okay, you have to follow several steps, and this is the scientific method of answering a research question and coming up with a conclusion. And the different elements of the research paper that you are doing should relate to one another, and it is from this flow of logic where you will make your conclusions. So let's have an example. So let's say we have a hypothetical project that we did, and the title of the project is a study on the relationship between internet gaming and absenteeism amongst high school students in the municipality of Rizal. Okay, so from this project, let's say that we have developed a research objective. So the objective of this research is to determine the relationship between the frequency of playing games or gaming in e-cafes and the level of high school absenteeism in children in the municipality of Rizal. So we're focusing on high school level children. Okay, so there is this relationship or association that we want to study. Okay, so following the logic, when you go down to your research problem, okay, it has this association with the objective. So the research problem here is, or the question that we want to answer in our study is there a relationship or association between the amount of time high school students spend playing online games in internet cafes and the rates of school absenteeism? What's the relationship between the two? So again, following the logic of conclusion, when we are at the point of determining the research variables that we want to measure, okay, let's say that in answering the question, in order to answer the research question, we are going to measure two variables. So the first one is the time spent by students playing games, okay, in the internet cafe in a week, right? Let's say, and the average time. And the other research variable would be the rates of absenteeism in high schools in the municipality. Okay, so two variables, and the indicators that we will come up with should also be logically connected to the variable. So for example, in terms of the time being spent playing games, the indicator for that would be the average number of hours in a week spent by each student playing online games, right? So in terms of the variable of absenteeism, the indicator that we can use here is the number of days in a month a student is recorded absent in class, right? So having the indicators, we can now go on to the next stage, which is actually, implementing the research and, collecting our data and, gathering results. So let's say that we've already gathered the results and we are presenting our findings. So logically, the next step here is to report this. So let's just say hypothetically that the findings of our research are as follows: that on average, an online gamer spends around 4 hours a day for about 5 days a week in the internet cafe in the municipality of Rizal. The same students that we've observed are reported as being absent from school an average of 5 to 6 school days every month. And let's say that we've compared these students who love to do online gaming versus students who did not. So let's say that because of that, there is a 65 absentee rate amongst gamers, and this is compared to 20% absentee rate for those who do not play online games. And let's also assume that we've made sure that we have performed good statistics here, so we can say that all results that we got in this study are statistically significant. So again, the next step in the logic of conclusions is now to make our conclusions based on the findings. So based on the findings, the conclusions are: number one, there is a direct and statistically significant association among students who play online games in internet cafes in Rizal and their absenteeism rates in school. So we are saying here that based on the findings, and which are in turn based on the variables and the indicators that we've used, okay, there's an association between two factors. The first one is playing online games in internet cafes, and the other one is absenteeism rates. All right, so another conclusion is that the rates of absenteeism amongst online gamers is significantly higher than that of non-gamers, right? So we can say that our conclusions will support or will answer our research question, and at the same time our conclusions will also state that we have achieved our research objectives. And the final flow of logic after this, of course, is to come up with our recommendations, and we need to also make sure that we give our recommendations to specific end users or to specific targets. So in this case, I've identified 4. For example, our recommendations to the LGU leadership is to strictly enforce ordinance prohibiting school-aged children from patronizing cafes, especially during school hours and weekdays. So they also need to penalize those cafe operators who break the rules of the ordinance. So for the next group, for schools, we recommend that they strengthen their educational campaigns with students on the dangers of online gaming. So this is a education and advocacy program that they need to do. So for parents, we can say that we would want to recommend to parents that they should monitor their child's daily school activities and perhaps be more active in their learning and studies. And for the e-cafes, cyber cafes themselves, they should practice self-policing. They police their own ranks. They should abide by the local ordinance, and at the same time they should encourage the use of internet not just for gaming but for learning and personal growth. Okay, so this is an example of doing a good research project and following the logic of conclusions.